Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah.
A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to the Legacy of Supers on HJN. Now, the title down there is a pretty interesting one, to say the least, because today's topic is going to be yet another villain here from the Detective Comics universe, the Batman universe, if you will. And this one in particular is one that I'm a really big fan of. A somewhat underrated, yet highly powerful, 600-year-old leader of the League of Assassins, Ra's al Ghul. Basically, another one of those super duper big chess players out there that happens to beat so many people out there. But of course, at one point the Joker actually beat Ra's in chess, and Bane was very close to beating Ra's as well. But in many ways, Ra's al Ghul is more than just all those things. Of course, Ra's is the leader of the League of Assassins, but also bears a pretty big underground network where the League of Assassins basically resides in. Pretty much to stay hidden from the main public eye. But I will say for sure that based on from what I know about Arkham City-based lore, or the Arkham series in general, Ra's al Ghul was voiced by actor D. Bradley Baker. Yeah, that's right. The same guy who has made tons of different animal sounds and sound effects and the like just by, well, speaking into a mic. But also the same guy who was Klaus Heitzler in Good Morning USA. American Dad. Whatever you guys want to call it, I don't freaking care at this point. But that's not really important because D. Bradley Baker pretty much nailed the performance on Ra's al Ghul in 2011's Arkham City. I've had that game for a while on the Xbox 360, especially when it first came out. And I will say for sure that the game itself is already a big chock full of different characters that are introduced into the Arkham series of games, because at the time, Arkham City was the second entry into the Arkham series of video games, with Arkham Asylum being the first. Asylum did have a huge list of different characters, heroes and villains, that you could see in the main story itself. But Arkham City went even further with it, and brought along different characters, heroes and villains of all sorts, including Robin. They introduced Robin for the first time in there, but they also brought along a handful of others here and there, mainly villains, like Mr. Freeze, Clayface, Solomon Grundy, Penguin, and of course, this one. Ra's al Ghul was, in fact, the big villain that you could fight against in the game. But of course, Ra's wasn't necessarily the top-notch boss that you'd fight against. The Joker is, in fact, still the main antagonist in the entire thing itself, and everyone else is pretty much just gravy on top, in a way. The gravy, of course, is pretty much what you'd suck out of it before getting to the main part of the steak. Yeah, I'm kind of going a little far on this analogy here, but the point is that, well, Ra's al Ghul was just one of the many main boss battles that you would encounter in Arkham City, in the same way that you'd fight up against others like Mr. Freeze, Solomon Grundy, Clayface, and a handful of others here and there. But let's also not forget that, well, aside from everything else I've already talked about here, Ra's al Ghul is still a pretty formidable foe of the Batman. The only reason Batman went down to the League of Assassins headquarters underground in Wonder City was because of a blood sample. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't played the game already, then well, no need to listen forward anymore, but the basic gist of the story in that part of the game is that after defeating the Penguin and rescuing Mr. Freeze from a certain death, returning the suit and all that good stuff, Batman lets Mr. Freeze know that the League of Assassins is basically their only hope of getting a good blood sample just to bind with the rest of the components needed to make the cure that Batman is suffering from some sort of disease. Because of the Joker, for the most part. It had something to do with the Titan from the first game, but of course the basic part of the lore is that, well, Batman and Joker both get infected with some sort of disease caused by the kind of Titan that they're injected with, and as a result, it's up to Batman to find a cure for both of them. no matter what the cost is. The whole part of the story is loaded with different parts that you're basically a part of. And not to mention the different enemies and the like that you encounter throughout the whole game, a variety of different tactics and the like. I mean, it's just incredible. But wow. I'm getting quite off track here at this point. So, in conclusion, I will say that Ra's al Ghul, aside from being a pretty formidable foe, aside from having a bunch of different abilities and the like, and also having a really big backstory in mind, and also because of Raish's little Lazarus pit that goes on in the whole entire game, which is the whole reason why there's a boss battle, I will say Raish is just one of those underrated type of characters out there that certainly got a lot of attention these days, mainly because of Arkham City. I mean, that thing was amazing. The whole Arkham series of games was amazing, but Arkham City was just one of those that really gave us a good story of the Batman itself. Well, anyways, I still have a lot of other villains and the like that I'm going to have to talk about some other time, so if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.